I've always been a lucky guy. Not the win the lottery kind of luck. No, it's more the dodge a bullet kind. And let me tell you, I'll take that any day. Sometimes it's little things, like finding that corner of the ground that gives you just enough to pay the bus fare on a rainy day. Other times, it's bigger things, like stepping out of the room to take a leak, moments before some drunk dope you're standing next to starts throwing punches for no reason whatsoever. And then there was that time I literally dodged a bullet, fired by a friend who didn't know the gun was loaded. But that's for another time. I graduated high school with pretty average grades and had no idea what to do with myself. The prospects were grim. My whole county was taking the recession hard. Foreclosures and layoffs were a weekly event. It's amazing how quickly some of my friends fell into the bottle or a pill pack. It was getting scary and I wanted to get out before I went that way. So I listened to my dad for once and I signed up. I couldn't swim to save my life, so the Navy and the Coast Guards were out. I gave the Army some thought, but in the end, I went for the Air Force because my grandpa had been a flyboy in Korea and I felt it was some kind of tradition. As it turned out, I scored kinda high on the test and after boot camp got tapped and sent to the Aircraft Metals Technology School. That's a fancy way of saying that I became a machinist. There was a lot of math and I kinda struggled with that, but the hands-on work appealed to me. I'd never seen a lathe or a welder up close before, but by the time they were through with me, I could work them like a pro, which I now was. I thought my luck had run out when my deployment orders came. Iraq. For a moment, I had visions of being at some forward base, patching Black Ops while some asshat lobbed old Soviet mortar rounds in my general direction. But my luck held. I was being sent to a unit in the Green Zone. If you don't know by now, the Green Zone is what everyone called the International Zone, which had been the former regime's fortress in the middle of Baghdad. It was big, about 10 clicks square, and had the Tigris River on one side like a big moat. I was there for a year, and except for one time that I'll tell you about some other time, I never left. Not that it mattered. My grandpa said it was best when I was a kid. Boy, don't you ever go looking for trouble. It wants you. Trouble will find you, sure enough. And it did. The day I got there, there was no auspicious. It turns out the Green Zone had a fair share of asshats lobbing mortars into it, mostly from the Sadr City neighborhood. There's lots of trouble over there and they like to share. As it turned out, the rounds they chucked at us that day didn't do much. Their aim was as crap as their gear. Oh, they'd almost get me for once a few months in, which was one of those rounds hit a shop I'd been in not 5 minutes before. Lucky, yeah, for me, but not for the other two guys that were in there. But all that isn't the story I wanted to tell you. I wanted to tell you about the girl. Okay, girl might not be the word to use, but she was definitely a woman. Young, but a little bit older than me, maybe mid-20s. I'm guessing here. She was pretty, alright, and she had all the right parts in all the right places. Petite, and she moved like a dancer. Someone who was not only fit and lithe, but could speak with her body. Does that sound right? Expressive, I suppose. She was poetic, and her eyes. Most people here have brown eyes, but hers were steel blue. The kind that looked like they're glowing, even in the daylight. I saw her first about a month after I got there. I was walking from here to there with a few of my buddies when I saw someone standing in the shadows of the alley I was passing. This was late afternoon, getting near twilight. She was dressed in men's clothes of an older style. Boots, loose pants, and a fitted jacket, with scarves of many colors tied around her neck and one more draped over her head for modesty. She was the kind of woman you could put in men's clothes and she'd only look more feminine. I couldn't see her face from the scarf in the shadow, but her eyes. Those glowing eyes caught mine for a moment and locked my gaze. I stopped dead in my tracks and I looked at her. She kept looking at me for a second and then seemed startled, as if she was shocked that I had seen her. One of my friends asked me why I had stopped, and that shook me out of it, and I looked at him and pointed to the alley. Look at that girl. They all looked. What girl? One asked. I looked back and she was gone. That earned me some ribbon for the rest of the day. The guys saying I was a girl crazy and spending too much time in the sun. It was a few days later that I saw her again. The sun had just gone down and I was cleaning up my workbench when I suddenly felt like going outside. No, I felt compelled to go outside, like I had something really important to do. I finished up as quickly as I could and I logged out, almost running to the front door. When I stepped out into the fading light of the day, I saw a familiar figure lingering in a small copse of trees across the way. I walked towards her with some trepidation. We were in the green zone where everyone was vetted and the security was tight, so I wasn't worried about violence. But the sight of an American chatting up a local female wouldn't sit well with some of the locals, who might get really pissed off. Besides, I didn't speak any of the local dialects, so this could be a very short conversation. I stopped about 5 feet away and I returned her stare. And then she spoke. "So you can see me." Her English was perfect, not a hint of accent. I didn't know what to make of her words. A local greeting lost in translation? There was also a strange timbre in her voice, almost an echo, like I was hearing another voice saying the same words but from far away. A light breeze wafted around us, tinted with the aroma of spices, frankincense and myrrh, sandalwood and cinnamon. "Yes," was all I could manage in reply. "That's me, suave as always." She studied me a moment longer before continuing. "How is this possible?" I shrugged, befuddled. "Because you're standing right in front of me." I swear, those brilliant eyes of hers seemed to grow even brighter for a moment before she shrugged with a heavy sigh. All this time, and I've been granted a fool, an enrollment at that, alas. She peered at my uniform, read my name, and seemed to be thinking aloud. Prince. He is a prince, yet knows nothing of his nature. I suppose a prince of fools is still a prince. She looked at me again. "Did you suffer an injury as a child? Kicked in the head by a camel, perhaps?" Any other woman, no matter how pretty, and I would have given her a few salty words before walking away. But this one, I stood, despite her insults, and I carried on. "We don't have camels in Kentucky, and I'm not a Roman. I'm from America." I pointed at the flag on my sleeve. "See? You are from a Western empire. It doesn't matter what province, you're centered in your imperiate or in Rome. That means you are a Roman." She shook her head as if she was talking to an idiot. "None of that matters. The 5 winds have brought you to me. I must work with what I have. Come." She spoke that last word like an order to a servant as she pivoted on her heel and walked away to the north. I didn't even ask. I followed her close behind. We passed a lot of people, some of the guys I worked with, but none of them gave us a second glance. In fact, none of them gave us a first glance. We were like ghosts moving through the zone. People walking towards us seemed to veer off at the last second as if pushed by a firm wind. Walking in her trail, I once again sensed the aroma of spices, of cinnamon, teasing on the wind. There was something else, scents I didn't know, scents that spoke of older days, leaving me to feel as if we were somehow walking back in time, or that she had made the journey herself from some ancient days. I could see the modern world of the green zone around us, the people, the buildings, but they seemed an overlay, a projection atop the true city which was far older than I knew. Darkness had fallen by the time we stopped in front of a row of dilapidated old houses near the edge of the zone. This row had definitely seen some better days, but one house seemed to stand out from the others. It was in far better shape and all the windows in its wide open door were lit brightly from within. I noticed people going by quicken their step as they passed, trying their best to not look at the house and almost seeming to hope the house didn't notice them. We stood across the street from the place for a long minute before she spoke, talking to me but never taking her eyes off of the doorway. "Do you see it? Do you see it yet?" Her voice had dropped to a whisper. I looked at the house, at every window, at the door. What? No, I don't, wait. I had cut myself off at the hint of movements inside, at one of the ground floor windows. From behind its tissue-thin curtains, a form appeared to stand still a moment, as if staring back at us before moving away. Wait, could he see us? In the dark, with the curtain? It can. Cloth is nothing to it, and it sees in the dark, of course. She glanced over her shoulder at me. Do you know nothing about the Afridi? And as she looked back at the house, she said to herself, of course not. He doesn't even remember he is a prince unless he writes it on his tunic. All this was confusing me. Why are we here? To retrieve something very special to me. That thing, and there pretends to be a man, a dealer of antiques. In truth, it is a monster, one of the unfaithful, who has imprisoned several of my family in hope of ransoming them for a pardon, as if what has been done could be forgiven. She wheeled around to look at me once more, and I swear her eyes were glowing like blue-white flame. You will go in there. Pretend to be an idiot Roman. That should be an easy task, looking for trinkets to bring home. Take this. She held out a small sandalwood box, intricately carved. Do not open it until you're inside of the house. I stepped back a bit. Training and instinct were kicking in. Whoa, what is that? Some kind of IED? It was small, but even a few ounces of black powder could be deadly if it went off close to you. ID? What is... No, never mind. What is in there will not harm you. Open it as if to show him something. The rest will happen as it should. Warily, I took the small box from her, wondering where it came from. Not its point of origin, I mean, where she had it on her person. I didn't see any pockets and, small as it was, it would have bulged out from its hiding place. I looked again to her eyes, glowing in the shadows. And what are you going to do? I will enter when the way is clear. Now hurry. She put her hands to my back and nudged me along with the shooing motion. Shaking my head a bit, I clasped the wooden box in my right hand and walked across the street, asking myself, why am I doing this again? As I reached the door, a hot wind seemed to push out from the inside, halting me in my tracks. From inside, there was a hearty laugh and a beckoning voice. Come in, my friend, come in. You are one of the Crusaders, are you not? Never mind, all are welcome here. And with that, the hot wind faded and I felt able to step inside. Somehow I resisted the impulse to look towards the shadow behind me as I entered. The entranceway was dark, and filled with darker patches that seemed to move about with a low hiss. To the right was a beaded doorway from which a bright red light emanated. I parted the beads and stepped through into a ride of red and gold. Everything in the room seemed to be one of those two colors. Chests and crates stacked in the corners, tables piled with exotic treasures large and small. The red light seemed to come from everywhere, as if I were standing amid glowing coals. The room was also a lot warmer than the air outside. In the center of it all was a tall, broad-shouldered man of late middle age. It was easy to see that he had been quite brawny in his younger days, a bodybuilder perhaps, or a wrestler. Age had diminished him only slightly. His taste for antiques seemed to extend to his clothes as well, for he wore the outfit of a well-past time, dark red with copious gold brocade. A smile as broad as his shoulders bared out from beneath a thick mustache. Welcome, welcome. How fortunate am I that you have found your way to my humble shop. I have many things that would delight and amaze you, all at reasonable prices. You are alone. No friends? How interesting. Your need must be great, to come here alone so late in the day. You are a Christian, yes? Or perhaps a Jew? All are welcome here. Only 3 days ago I was visited by some of your friends, one of whom bore on his forearm the mark of Satan. He bought one of my best rugs. Oh, but you are not looking for rugs, are you, my friend? Tell me, are you looking for yourself or for someone else? I shook off the doldrum the heat of the room seemed to be laying on me, and with a quick exhale, I found my voice. Oh, no. Not for myself, no. There's a girl. He seemed to get even taller as his hands came up to clap. Say no more, my friend. I understand your need. A beautiful woman cannot be denied. You wish to give her something precious, yes? Something unique. I have many items for you to choose from. Perfumes, fine silks, exotic spices. Jewelry in abundance. Rings for the finger, rings for the ears. A necklace, yes? Gold, ivory, precious stones. You have but to ask. All prices are reasonable. Yeah. The room had taken on a strange, shimmering quality. Truth be told, it was like a cheap special effect from an old TV show. As if we were all about to get wavy and fade to another scene. I heard that low hiss from the front hall again, seeping in maniacally. I focused on the shopkeep, the only thing in the room not moving. That all sounds good, but I was looking for something like this. I brought up the box and I showed it to him. His reaction was underwhelming, his smile fading a bit. My friend, this is, how shall I put it? Less than what I offer. This little box, it is a trinket. One of a million like if you would find in every stall in the marketplace. Surely you wish to present your love with something more. I took a deep breath to keep my head clear. The room was too hot and I was becoming befuddled. Everything was wobbling, trying to become something else. The red walls of the room seemed to flicker and roll as if it was coated in fire. The stacks of crates and boxes seemed to pale and crumble into piles of shattered bones. The genial host's smile took on a fearful menace, his teeth becoming pointed and stained. Reflexively, I flexed my open hand and I brought it up to clasp on the small box in the other. No, not that, I mean, what's inside, see? I flicked open the clasp and quickly opened the box. The shopkeep peered forward a bit, perplexed. My friend, have you been drinking? There is nothing. His eyes, pinched and peering, suddenly went wide in fear. He jumped backwards, arm flailing as if warding off some attack. Out of nowhere, a great wind, hot and biting, flew in from the outside. The dark things in the hall stopped hissing and instead screeched in terror amid great tearing sounds before falling silent. The owner of the shop was in full panic, his hands waving, fingers making symbols I didn't understand, as he kept shouting things in Persian. I suddenly found myself gasping for breath as the flickering light in the room went dark. In the blackness, I heard the roar of the building, collapsing around me as if some great force threw me back. I passed out as I hit the ground, the howling wind filled with the scent of cinnamon. The next thing I remember was waking up in an ambulance of paramedics were unloading me to an IBMC in a hospital. Everyone expressed amazement at my good fortune. Aside from some bruises and scrapes, I was unhurt. I was told later that I had been thrown out of a window and into the street by the force of an explosion. That was the official story, that I had been lured into the house by a group of insurgents who planned to murder me. Seems they were also making IEDs in there and one went off prematurely. The bodies of several people were found in the rubble of the demolished house. That was the official story and I was ready to believe it. Ready to believe that the girl with the glowing eyes was working for the thugs in the house, luring me in with her wild story. Ready, that is, until she showed up in my hospital bed in the dead of night, a dark silhouette against the light of the full moon streaming in from my window. Dark, but for the glowing blue eyes staring at me. So, foolish Prince Roman, you live. I am glad for that. You have done a great service for me and my kindred this day. The Afridi and its foul servants are banished and my cousins are free from its prison. Know that you have made a terrible enemy of the Afridi, but also know the Djinn are in your debt. Should they menace you, call upon me. Farewell, Prince of the Fools. And with that, she was gone, leaving only a gentle breeze scented in cinnamon